Hello and happy Friday. Sorry for the slightly slow start. Had a few internet issues, which hopefully won't bother us. But yeah, welcome. Lovely to be with you all again. It's been a while. I think last time we sat down and had a chat, it was just before Christmas, and a lot has happened since then, hasn't it? Mainly the 1921 census launching online. But yeah, lovely to be back with everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I can see a few people saying hello already. Hello to Philip, hello to Paul, hello Sally, hello William, hello Sylvia, ooh, hello Sarah, hello Flo, hello Beth, coming in thick and fast. Hello Gary, hello Ruth, hello Victoria, hello Anya. Happy Rose, hello Rosie, hello everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you are all very well. Well, what are we talking about today? Well, it's Friday, which means new records. So we'll take a look at what we've released this week. Still very much in the theme of 1921. I hope none of you are censused out. We certainly aren't. We're still finding new things every single day and still finding the whole thing incredibly exciting. So yeah, we'll be taking a look at this week's very interesting 1921 themed records. We'll be taking a look at some of the fascinating facts, figures, and statistics that the census has revealed. Well, I mean, I think we've already talked quite a lot about individual stories. I mean, there are millions we haven't told yet. We're still finding incredible stories by the day. But I thought it'd be quite fun to have a look at some of the numbers, because I think that's what the census does. It paints a picture of Britain in numbers, painted by numbers, if you like, but for a whole country. So we'll have a look at those stats, depending on how we get on for time. I know some of you love quizzes, some of you aren't the biggest fans, but I have pulled together some 1921 not 1921, general 1920s pop quiz questions, which we will try and get through. But beyond that, we're here for a discussion. So yeah, let me know what you've been discovering, your thoughts, your feelings, your feedback, hopes for the future, you name it. Everything is fair game. If you have any questions about anything in particular, doesn't have to be about what we're talking about today. Doesn't have to be the terrible addiction, a quiz. Sorry, I know it's a short one. It's a short one, and we might not even get to it. We'll see how we get on for time. I can see the comments are coming in thick and fast, actually. I'll come back to that question a little bit. Yeah, so that is what is on the agenda for today. I say this pretty regularly, but if you have any questions to do with anything family history related whatsoever, could be about what we're talking about today, could be about something more general. Maybe you've hit a brick wall that you're struggling with. This is a great forum to air them. If I see them, I will try my best to answer them live. But yeah, we are also joined by some incredibly knowledgeable people who tune in each and every week and are incredibly helpful, lovely, friendly, wonderful, supportive people that you are. So if you don't get an answer from me, you may get an answer from one of our wonderful community members. Right. So before we dive into the main event, the actual things I'm here to discuss about, I actually do have a bit of news to share with you all. It is today, I guess, marks the end of an era, really. It's with a very heavy heart and with great sadness. I do have to announce today will be my last ever live broadcast. I am moving on from my past. I have a new job which I will be leaving to take next Friday. So Friday the 28th will be my final day with Final Past after 8 years. Um, I've loved it. I've loved every single minute of it. Terribly sad to be going, but all good things must come to an end. Find My Past has been a huge part of my life for pretty much all my adult life. You know, all the big kind of milestones that have happened in my life, getting married, having children, all those things. Find My Past has been the backdrop of it. And I actually think one of the things that I'm proudest about of my whole time here is this Facebook Live. You know, starting this off with Max many years ago, when I was a lot more fresh-faced, a lot thinner. Seems like a millennium ago, but from very humble beginnings, just Max myself a smartphone. It grew over time thanks to the wonderful support from all you wonderful people. And then Ellie just took it to a completely new level when Ellie took over and brought it into the modern age. It's been an absolute pleasure to watch this evolve over time. And I honestly, genuinely do consider you all to be dear friends. So I will, this won't be the last you'll see of me. I will be tuning in and leaving comments in broadcasts in the future. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. Loved it. Yeah, feeling a bit emotional actually. No, very. I'm very excited to be taking on a new challenge and to be trying something new. Um, I can see Matthew Donovan's asked how. Thank you very much. Hoping your job goes well. What will you be doing? Something similar or completely different? Something completely different, actually. I will always be a family historian. That is one of the things I will definitely take away from the many happy years I've had with Find My Past. This is going to be a lifelong passion for me and something that I genuinely do think I will be doing for the rest of my life. But yeah, no, the new role is it's similar. I'll be doing PR, just like I have been doing for Find My Past, but it couldn't be further removed from the world of family history. It's actually the world of it's a bit more businessy, world of international trade, shipping, logistics, supply lines. Very different, but that was one of the things that actually kind of appealed to me. I felt I was ready for a new challenge and ready to try something new. And family history will always be a part of my life, a big part of it. Yeah, so yeah, I've been yeah. Thank you, Matthew, and lots of lovely comments coming in. Yeah, really touching to see this. I'm actually feeling quite quite emotional. I will miss you all terribly. But as I said, I will be checking in on here very regularly. I'll still be chatting to some of you. Do feel free to look me up on Facebook. I'm not particular. Yeah, don't you know? Yeah, don't. Didn't you know you're supposed to be a lifer at FMP? Well, yeah, I kind of thought I was going to be as well, and it certainly felt that way. In 8 years of my life, pretty much as much of my adult life as I can remember, I have been at Find My Past. Yeah, if any of these shipping lines have archives, you know where we are. New job isn't in a band. Maybe one day. Holding out. I've still got dreams of becoming a rock star. Maybe one day. But yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much to everybody who have supported us, supported this, and has helped us build a wonderful community that I do think is actually one of the truly special things about Find My Past. Yeah. I won't say too much more because I actually will get emotional. But yeah, you've made all of you have had a big part to play in making my job thoroughly enjoyable. I've always said doing these has been one of the highlights of my weeks whenever I did them, and that is very true. So yeah, thank you everybody. It's been wonderful. And yeah, if you do want to stay in touch, look me up on Facebook. I'm not particularly hard to find. Some of you are Facebook friends with me already. You'll see my profile picture is me lying down on the floor with a dog. Do love my dogs. And also feel free to look me up on LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn. Again, I won't be particularly hard to find because I haven't updated my details yet. They're all still there as PR manager at Find My Past. So yeah, if you want, do feel free to connect. It'd be lovely to stay in touch with loads of you because love you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege. Right. Yeah. So Linda's saying, what have I missed? Just to repeat, so Linda, unfortunately, I am moving on. This will be my last Friday's live, but I will be staying in touch. I'll be tuning in. I'll be popping up in the comments. I was just saying to everybody how much I've thoroughly enjoyed it, how incredibly fond I am and we are at Find My Past of all of you. Yeah, it's been unreal. It's been brilliant. See, I'm getting emotional now, so I'm going to move on. So yeah, question of the week. I haven't even done that yet. So we like to start these off with a bit of a question, a question anybody can answer, just to get the conversations flowing. Very nice open-ended one. Not all of you might have ancestors in the 1920 census, so this doesn't have to be in Britain. It doesn't have to be in any country in particular. But what have you discovered about life in the 1920s? Could this be through a book you've read, an article you've read, a search you've conducted in the newspapers or in the census, a revelation you've made in your own family history? What were your ancestors doing? And what has that told you about what life was like in the 1920s? I've found, I mean, my one is probably a pretty obvious one because I've been through hundreds, probably near 1,000 census images already, maybe over 1,000 actually. Yeah, and I've just learned no secret at the start of the 1920s, life was tough. I've One of my favourite things has been seeing all these incredible annotations that appear in the records, and I think these have already been talked about on here, but it's amazing. We saw a lot of it in 1911 with the suffragettes spoiling their returns, but the 1920s took it to just a different level, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think part of it is the fact that the country had just emerged from one of the greatest traumas it had ever faced in its history, the First World War, also emerging from the Spanish flu pandemic. There was a lot of mounting anger in the country at the time, and maybe this is a bit twee, but the comparison I like to make is the angry, not always angry, but the pleas for help, the protests, the notes you see in 1921 census returns. I kind of almost view them like the equivalent of a modern day tweet to your local MP or someone in, you know, or senior ranking politician. Back then, this was one of the only ways normal people felt they had to communicate directly with the government. This was one of the only chances they'd have in their lives to have what they viewed as a direct channel to the powers that be. And I think that's why you see this noticeable increase in from 1911. But some of them really bring home what how challenging life was at that time. I think my favourite one was from a lady, I think her name was called Emily Wakefield, who was looking after her nephew who'd lost his hip and one of his legs in France. And she says, I'm looking after my son, looking after him. He's been disabled, lost his hip, lost his leg on something like 7 shillings a week. And then she does the great line, "You raise my taxes while you knight those who sit in velvet chairs. But what can I do? I am only a woman." And I think that just sums it up perfectly. I also loved all those kind of cozy examples that remind you it was a snapshot of a night 100 years ago, whether that be a coffee stain on the return, whether that be the often referenced kitty paw prints scattering across the page, whether it be a coin, a cigarette butt. Actually, Aoife, who I'm sure you all know because she's on here loads, Aoife's actually looking at a lot of the relics we've found in the documents themselves, and perhaps we might be able to make some kind of photo album or record collection off the back of that. So watch this space. Living history, I love it. So yeah, that's this week's question of the week. I'm going to take another look at questions before we start having a look at. Oh, thank you. I feel the same. And you're saying you're like family isn't family. I don't genuinely feel the same way about you guys. We've been doing this for so long and we've been speaking so regularly. I feel like I've kind of almost got I had a longer working relationship or longer connections with many of you than I actually have with my day-to-day colleagues. So yeah, no, I'm going to miss this terribly. Oh yeah, thank you. Victoria's saying from the Christmas session, I look at Robins in a totally different way. Thanks for that. Oh, I'm really pleased about that. Yeah, went home to my mum's up in Liverpool for Christmas, and as usual, the house was decked in robins, Christmas tree decked in robins, pictures of robins, stuffed robins, robin cushions. She loves her robins, but there's a lovely reason behind it. Right, let's have a quick look at some of the questions of the week. Nicole Hassel, question of the week, 1921 census. I found out my 4 great-grandparents, 3 of them since my great-grandmother was so I found out of my 4 great-grandparents, 3 of them since my great-grandmother wasn't born until 1923. Managed to find my great-grandmother was widowed at the time. It was 1921. Her husband was still alive in 1911. So searching for that link at the moment. It's been amazing finding them on the census. Gutted my great-grandmother he wasn't born in 1921. The only bad thing I would say is transcript errors, which we're working very hard to fix those. On the family name has been a pain to get the record unlocked to redo errors. Sorry to hear that, but we are very aware of all the feedback that's been coming in, and we are working very hard to fix these errors as fast as we possibly can. Rosie saying, "Oh, thank you. I hope the remaining cast can always bring as much enthusiasm and joie de vivre as you do, Alex. As there's been many a bleak Friday that's been made a little bit better for many of us. But thank you so much. yeah, makes it all worthwhile. That's a really, really, really lovely thing to hear. And I'm pleased to say actually that my Liam, the wonderful Liam Boyle. I don't. Some of you may have spoken to him before from our customer service team. Will be taking over my slots, and Liam's going to be fantastic. Liam is just as enthusiastic and passionate about family history as I am. He's a dab hand at research. I mean, have to be being on our customer support team. He breaks down brick walls for people on a daily basis. There is no brick wall. Well, no, I don't want to. Don't want to set him up. I was going to say no. Liam's fantastic. So yeah, give him a very hearty welcome when he tunes in, when he goes live for the first time. So I'm just going to have a glass of water in my old branding Find My Pass water bottle. But yeah, Liam will be stepping in to do my slots going forward, and they're going to be great. William, my pal William, has said 1920s for my family, depending on the branch, is either normal, a lot were farmers, others travelled with work, dockyard service, and others I learned about when the 1921 census came out and didn't realise how varied the job roles were of the extended family. Yeah, that's one of the things I've loved. The additional information on employment has been hugely helpful. I mean, one of the first things I did was look up my great great granddad Leslie. I think I might have told you about him before. He's the one who lived till 100, who passed away in such a shame. He was born in November or December 1899. And he was just determined to see in the millennium. So he could have said that he'd lived through 3 centuries, but he missed it by a month. He died on like the November 28th, 1999. So he just missed it. But I have very vivid memories of him as a child going to visit him. And he was a veteran of the First World War, survived the Somme. He was gassed, shot. He had a terrible time of it. It did impact him greatly. But I'd been desperate to find out what he did after the war. I'd been waiting. That was the thing I was really excited about. And it was not a massive revelation, but it was quite comforting. Basically, he returned to work at the factory that he'd worked at before he went off to fight back in Stoke. So, I mean, he was lucky in the sense that he came back to a job and a home. And many of the men that went off to fight didn't. So great great granddad Leslie was one of the lucky few. But it was fascinating to see where he was living and the fact that he'd literally come back and resumed his old life, which must have been so surreal after the absolute hell he must have endured. We still to this day don't know that much about his experiences because, like many of that generation, he never spoke about them. Never. Wouldn't tell my grandma, wouldn't tell my dad. Whenever people asked him about it, he'd shut them up. And it wasn't until I started working at Find My Past that my family filled this gap. We found his World War One service record, and we were lucky. It was one of the incredibly detailed ones. It was like 32 pages or something like that. It was like a complete biography. So that's how I was able to figure out he went back to work at the same factory, moved back in with his parents. But I just think that must have been so weird, just going back to the way things were after living through something as shattering as that. Anyway, let's have a look at some more that have come in. Tracy Bedford, question of the week. My great grandmother still having children with her second husband after having 6 with her first husband who died in World War One. 8 more kids. Wow, that's a good one. And you said, my biological 3 times great grandfather lived in a house in Liverpool. Oh, wow, which is now beneath the Liverpool FC shop. I know exactly where your granddad's house would have been then. Ah, small world, yeah. Well, grew up in that neck of the woods, know it very well. And that's quite a cool. That's a cool former address to find. So if you ever go, yeah, I know exactly where that is. So if you go check it out, if you ever pay a visit, actually, Anya, if you ever pay a visit to Liverpool, hit me up on Facebook. If I'm there visiting family, we'll grab a drink. That'd be lovely. Most of my family were in Scotland, so that's the coolest thing I've found. Well, the Scottish 1921 census should be releasing later this year, so you'll just have to wait, sadly. Beth said, question of the week. My maternal grandpa had a visit with his maternal uncle in Windsor. Oh, nice. Yeah, I like seeing visitors because, again, reminder of it was an incredible snapshot. You may have seen it in some of the press coverage we had around the launch, but the Arthur Conan Doyle story, that was amazing, wasn't it? If you don't know, so Arthur Conan Doyle big champion of spiritualism, massive believer. On the night of the 1921 census, he was actually hosting. He had a number of visitors. One was, let me find his name actually, because I have all these details. I was pulling them out the other week. Basically, we think Conan Doyle was having a séance on the night of the census. Yeah, here we go. So he had a few visitors, but the ones that we found who were particularly interesting were a man called James Hewitt Mackenzie and a lady called Ada Bassinet. And the reason those two are particularly interesting is that James Hewitt Mackenzie was the founder of the British College of Psychic Science, and Ada Bassinet was an American medium of some renown, actually, who was quite well known in at that period of time for her ability to channel the dead and use her body as a vessel through which spirits could communicate with their loved ones. Actually, we looked her up in the newspapers and we found out that there was newspaper reports in August 1921, which described how she held a séance in London for a guy called Professor Haraldur Nielsen, who was the professor of theology from the University of Iceland. And she was actually able to materialize the spirit of his dead wife, along with the departed loved ones of other guests. In fact, Professor Nielsen even claimed he could feel the spirit of his wife touching his ear, and was convinced of the validity of it, and that he was in the room. He felt like he was in the room with his departed wife, and Ada Bassinet was speaking with her voice. So we know she was performing seances in Britain 2 months after the census was taken. So the fact that you've got James Mackenzie and Ada Bassinet both at Arthur Conan Doyle's house, who was described by some as the St. Paul of spiritualism. He was one of its best known proponents. I mean, Arthur Conan Doyle actually himself lost his son Kingsley in the First World War, so he may have been, who knows, he may have been asking Ada to speak to his son, which, if that's the case, it's incredibly sad. But yeah, this is a perfect example of visitors in the census, and it's fair enough to assume that on census night, July 19th, 1921, Conan Doyle was hosting a séance. Actually, because I love stories, and I can't just leave it at that. Poor old Mackenzie, who was a good friend of Conan Doyle's, he actually was disgraced a few years later. He was quite well regarded in psychical research until he claimed that Harry Houdini was actually using psychic powers to open locks. He released a book describing this, said this is how Houdini's doing it, the guy's a psychic, and Houdini came out and basically said this is absolute nonsense. He actually called Mackenzie's claim one of the most, if not the most, flagrant instances of malobservation. And poor Mackenzie was very embarrassed, and his credibility greatly reduced. So yeah, all these amazing stories are still coming out of the census. There's so much. So let's see. Anna Shalika said, question of the week, hooked up with a relative who got in touch with her grandfather. Her grandfather was on the 1921 census with my great-grandfather and grandfather as a grandchild. Lovely. Sylvia has said, I expect that a PhD student will research these comments and make comparisons with. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, love that. Thinking in the future. That's brilliant. I expect that a PhD student will research these comments and make comparisons with social media for an academic paper or thesis once they are less costly to research. Oh yeah, sorry. I think you're talking about the census, not the comments we're making on Facebook Live. Completely misunderstood that. Oops, that's embarrassing. Pickles has said, I discovered that my great-granddad was listed as a war invalid, which neither I nor Mum, now 93, had been aware of. Whoa! Oh, that must have been a lovely discovery. Yeah, I didn't mean to challenge Liam. Break down all possible brick walls. No, sorry, ignore that. Yeah, I think Liam's gonna smash this. Like, I mean, the guy's been a customer service hero for years. If there's anybody who is on the front lines of Find My Past, if you could call them front lines, it's Liam. Liam sees every single day the kind of research challenges, the questions, the things people need to know on a daily basis. So I think he's literally perfectly equipped to speak to you lovely people and keep you all entertained. Ros Bull, on the 1921 census, my father's date of birth is 2 years later than his birth certificate, noted by mother. Very confusing. That is confusing. It could have just been a mistake. But I think even though the 1921 census does give more specific information on dates of birth, it is always important to remember it is a census. And the thing about censuses is they are only as reliable as the people that filled them in. But yeah, that is a bit confusing. Oh, this sounds like a good one. Sienna said, "My great-great-grandfather was born in Winston Green Prison." Oh, was in, not born, was in Winston Green Prison in 1921, and his wife and family were with his brother and family, 10 people altogether, sharing 3 rooms, which wasn't as uncommon as you'd think in Aston, Birmingham. My great-grandmother declared herself a widow and her children's father dead, even though she wasn't married. Wow, this is a juicy one. I then looked at criminal records. My great grandfather had an extensive record from 1900 to 1924 and deserted from the army twice, which was why he was locked up. No wonder she said she was a widow. Peaky Blinders comes strongly to mind. Yeah, it does. And actually, a new series of Peaky Blinders is coming out this year, I think, isn't it? So that's going to make for some great comparisons to our crime records, the 1921 census. And actually, on that note, I'm going to come back to comments. That is a very nice transition into this week's new records. I thought I had a banner for new records. I don't, but that's what we're going to be talking about anyway. So, it's Find My Past Friday. What have we released this week? Well, as I've said, we're continuing in the theme of 1921. We're trying to add additional resources that will help with your 1921 research. And I think, Sienna, this might be just the record set for you. So we have released the Police Gazette 1921. So this spans the entirety of the year of 1921. It comprises 152 issues. Where you basically have like 12 or between 12 and 13 issues being published each calendar month. This forms part of our wider collection of criminal and prison registers. The Police Gazette has a very long history. It dates all the way back to 1772. It's had various names over the years. Probably most famously was the Hue and Cry. I think we actually have a collection for Hue and Cry records on Find My Past as well. And its purpose was pretty much what it says on the tin. It was a police gazette. It was a way for the police to advertise for wanted criminals across the United Kingdom. People that were still at large, people that the police were desperate to catch, convict, and bring to justice. It's a really, really interesting document. It's basically Britain's most wanted list for 1921. I mean, you'll find people from all backgrounds, all different types of crimes in there. So, I mean, just looking at up to one for a chap here called Sango Brown, alias Samuel Brown, CRO. He was sentenced as Daniel White at Middlesbrough for possessing firearms and ammunition without a certificate. Oof, quite a naughty one. Previous convictions for larceny and fraud at Warrington and Liverpool. Another one for a chap called Thomas William Young, was sentenced to Alston to 3 years and 3 months for attempted larceny, 2 cases. He was previously convicted of larceny and minor offences at Newgate Castle, Gateshead, North Shields, and Glasgow. So you can find out loads about career criminals. They might not all be career criminals, but you'll find their names, the dates and locations of previous convictions and sentencing, as well as details of their offences, their aliases. You may still find portraits of persons wanted. I mean, I'm looking at one in front of me now, which is on the Friday's blog, for a man with an incredible moustache, obviously an ex-serviceman because he's in uniform in this photo, called Herbert Gould. He was 5'9" or 10 inches, so yeah, great example of some of the descriptions you'll get in there. You may even see notes scribbled in red left by police officers in 1921 over the text itself. But some of these are very, very, very detailed, actually. So I'll give you another example. This is from the Fridays blog as well. This is for a man in Derby for obtaining money by false pretences and cashing worthless checks, and by a guy by the name of Charles Wilfred Fletcher, born 1891, 5'9", medium build, blue eyes, hair dark, clean shaven, oval face, well spoken, gentlemanly appearance. Called upon shopkeepers, generally bareheaded, and asked for a cheque for £10 to be cashed on his behalf to be cashed on behalf of a well-known local doctor. Sorry, got that completely wrong. Stating that the latter wanted some ready cash. The cheque was drawn by Messrs. Cox and Coy Bank, wonder if they're a relation of mine, in favour of self or bearer, signed and endorsed by Charles William Fletcher. The cheque is from a book, the property of an army officer stationed in Derby. So we'd obviously pinched the chequebook from an army officer stationed there, which is believed to have either been lost or stolen while the owner was in London. Appears identical with Bernard Taus, case number. Da, 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 da. So yeah, there you go. Very, 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 very detailed. They're a real treat to just browse through, actually. Sorry, I got a message that threw me off, but yeah, very, 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 very interesting records. If your ancestor was a little bit dodgy, might have been a black sheep, or you think they might have been in trouble with the law in 1921, or if you find them in a prison in 1921, look them up. You may find details on their crime. So yeah, love that. Fascinating. Nice, really interesting record set for me to give on my last ever one. Oh gosh. Brian saying, simple question. Can you tell me where I can find the clipboard? I've copied a couple of records to the clipboard in order to purchase. I think they should be accessible from the your account. So I think if you go to, or it might be, is it? Yeah. So if you use the taskbar at the top of the page, go to my account drop down menu and have a look at my saved searches, and you should be able to access them there. Hope that helps, Brian. And you say, absolutely sounds like a good idea. I had no idea when oh, you support Liverpool as well. My stepmom's team. I had a family member living on Tinsley Street. Yeah, the Tinsley Street bus stop. I discovered there is indeed. I've got a bus from there many times in my youth. Let's have a look at a couple more comments, then we'll have a look at some stats from the 1921 census. Tracy has Beth has said, my maternal family have been attending the University of Liverpool on and off for over 100 years. Wow! I actually attended the University of Liverpool myself. Absolutely loved it there. Had a great time. It is a great city. I miss it terribly to this day. So yeah, your maternal family and I are alumni of the same august institution. Tracy has said, question of the week, I found my granddad and great-grandmother. I found my granddad went to the same school as my children went to. Oh, wow, that is cool. See, the parallels you can draw to life in the present is one of the great things about family history, and that's a great example of that. And he only lived around the corner from where I live now, so went to take a look at the house. Brilliant. I always love it when I hear people do that. I've done that myself. Story I've told many times, but I mean, so I've learned so much about my own family through this job and the passion it's given me for family history. I knew a bit. I think I've probably talked about this before, but we always tend to have one. Each family tends to have like one person who's really more into it than everybody else. And prior to me, it was my dearly beloved, dearly departed grandfather. He was very interested in this, so I grew up hearing stories about our ancestors. He never did anything online. I don't think he used the internet in his life. But he'd written a lot down and he'd kept a lot of photos. So I was kind of relatively familiar with my ancestors throughout my childhood. In fact, there's photos of them all over the house, which my wife isn't the biggest fan of, but I've said they're now our son's ancestors too, so they're staying on the wall. Yeah, so my grandfather was the one who kind of planted the seed, and then when I started working at Find My Past and started actually doing online research myself, like you all, I was instantly hooked. and I've learned so much. My granddad knew a bit, but I've just been able to expand on it and take it so much further, and I can't even remember. That was what my point was. Yeah, I learned that, I moved from Liverpool to London about 8 years ago now, 9 years ago. Lived in different parts of London. Lived in Clapham. Lived on a boat once. Lived in different places. Lived in Teddington, Hampton Court, and it wasn't until I moved to Twickenham, where I live now, where I was like, this feels like home. This is the place. I really like it. And I've been here 7 years now. And then I did more digging on my Cox ancestors and realised that all my father's ancestors lived in Twickenham and St Margaret's, like literally down the road. And I was like, wow, is that some kind of strange genetic memory? Is that why I feel so at home here? Is that why I love this place so much? And I've done the same thing as you, Tracy. I've actually been round to see the houses they lived in, which was quite depressing because they were absolutely massive and beautiful, and they were the kind of houses that I could probably, I might be able to afford if I won Euro Millions. They were very nice, but I haven't quite worked up the courage to knock on the door and invite myself in to take a look around. Maybe one day. Adele has said, in 1921, I found that my grandfather and his father are living with a woman called Elizabeth Dempsey in Birmingham, who we think is actually my grandfather's grandmother with a different surname. Even more bizarrely, when I go back to check the birth dates on the 1939 register, she's still living with them. Really can't work out who this lady is for sure. So, as well as aiding a discovery, the 1921 census has opened up a new mystery for you, Adele. That's something else for you to dig into. Matthew has said, question of the week, favourite 1921 census find so far has been finding both my grandmothers, born 1914 and 1919, so very dinky children in there. A great joy to see them. Also found the house where I lived during the 80s with two families. It looks as though it was enumerated twice. Oh, so the two families living in one house. Well, yeah, I'm gonna do stats in a second, so we'll look at that. I'm also trying to find the house that later became my school. That'd be interesting. Yeah, it was. I imagine if it was a school, it was probably quite a splendid residence. So someone interesting must have been living there. If you find that out, Matthew, do keep us posted. So many comments. People were saying they're pleased that police gazette's up. Sorry, I'm just laughing at some of the banter you all share. Tracy, my mum died in September last year. Very sorry to hear that, but she left a full 5-drawer filing cabinet full of family history, which I'm now going to trawl through over this year. That's a great New Year's resolution, and it's a great legacy to be left. That was, what a wonderful thing for your mother to do. Similarly, when my grandfather passed away about 4 years ago now, I inherited all his notes. Well, he'd given a lot of them to me already, but he'd kept so many that there were things I think he'd forgotten about, and I've got stuff that I still need to sit down and go through. Yeah, and you're saying the same thing. That's spooky. I live in the same parish as my 5 times great grandparents. Had no idea when I moved here. Did you think that there's some kind of genetic memory there? Matthew Donovan, is it possible to search the police gazettes by surname? I believe it is, but I will triple check that for you now. I'm certain it is because I did the search before. No, I'm afraid. Ignore me. You can't, I'm afraid. You can search by date, issue number, volume, image number, and keyword. You could put the surname down. Actually, let's try that. I'm going to put Cox down as a. Yeah, you can put surname down as a keyword, but what I would recommend doing is looking for your ancestor in the crime records and using the dates and locations and things like that there, and using that to inform your search in the police gazette. Kim has said, every generation of my family had someone interested in genealogy, usually a cousin that has passed information down until this generation, and we got myself and my sister. It's like that in mine. The others are all interested, but I'm the only one actively doing it, so I'm often getting requests. Oh, well, can you send me this, or can you look up this? I'm like, got you. I think what I should just do is actually export the GEDCOM and send it to everybody, and then start encouraging them to start researching. Because if all of us are cracking at it, we're going to find out more. Right, gosh, where has the time gone? I've been enjoying myself so much; it's flown by. We'll do a quick look. We might not have time for the quiz, I'm afraid. Sorry about that. Anya will be relieved. I'm sure someone else can do one in the coming weeks. I've logged all my questions, but we'll see how we get on. Painting a nation by numbers. So, as I said before, the 1921 census is unrivaled in its ability to give us a perfect snapshot of the civilian, well, not just the civilian, the population of England and Wales in 1921. But what kind of things did it reveal? Well, loads. Loads. Quite a few people are commenting about seeing the multiple families living in one residence. That wasn't unusual. The average size of a family in 1921 was 4.14 versus 4.36 in 1911, so marginally smaller. Families were becoming smaller than compared to 1911. I mean, families of 1 to 5 people did continue to grow, but families of 6 or more was on a sharp decrease. And that's a trend that would continue over time. So looking at family sizes and dwellings, so 8.7 million, so 38 million people were recorded by the census, but 8.7 million private families were enumerated. These were private families, not in institutions, people living as family units. 80% of them were living in a single occupation, were living in the single occupation of separate dwellings. So just to that makes sense. 80% of people were living in a home for just that family. 13% of people were still living 2 families to a dwelling. 13% is a lot when you think about it. I mean, think of that today. I can't think of many. Well, I don't think I know anyone who is sharing their homes with a whole other family. I'm not talking about people living in house shares or flats. I mean, I'm talking about whole families sharing the same dwelling. So 13.7%. 2 families to a dwelling, and 6.1% were housed in dwellings that contained 3 or more families each. Miko did a great interview on BBC Radio Berkshire yesterday because he found a record for the presenter where it was a similar story where her ancestors were living in a house that they were sharing with another family. And the way he framed it was that this was the 1921 census kind of documents, I think you could say, the birth of modern Britain. We're moving into the modern age, but you still see these hangovers from the Victorian age, like this. So the largest dwellings, and that's the thing, when you're looking at the census image, always look at the box at the bottom right of the screen, because that will tell you how many rooms were in that dwelling. That will tell you how many people, and you look at the number of people in the household, you look at the number of rooms, you can work it out. But the largest dwellings were found in rural and residential counties, as you probably imagine. Smallest were in industrial areas, particularly those associated with mining. Lots of poor families crammed in, going where the work is. Northumberland and Durham were very prominent in this respect. They had a very high proportion of dwellings of the smallest type. Counties that had the highest average number of rooms per dwelling were Radnorshire, Sussex, the Isle of Wight, Middlesbrough and London. So yeah, those are the areas with the houses with the biggest rooms. Counties with the lowest average number of rooms per dwelling were Northumberland, Durham, Yorkshire, Lancashire, and Staffordshire. All areas with very, very, very heavy industry. London might be the best example of this combination. The large disparity between the number of families and the number of dwellings. I guess that kind of shows the change in the character of the area since over time. But yeah, I'm kind of going off a bit of a tangent there. Because we know there was a real housing crisis at the time. One of the other striking similarities to life today. One of the lines you see quite a lot in the notes of protest left on the forms is "Homes fit for heroes." Lloyd George had promised all the soldiers who fought in the war they'd come back to these homes fit for heroes. that wasn't the case. There was still a desperate shortage. I mean, 90,000 houses were under construction in 1921 as part of this promise. There were 7.1 million private houses, 83,000 flats and tenements, but 38 million people. So you can see there was not enough to go round, just like it is today. Conscious of time, so let's have a look at occupations. Actually, marital status is an interesting one. So in 1921, we can see that there were 20 million people, 20.5 million people were recorded as single. 1,000, there were 1,065 females to 1,000 males. When you compare that to 19, you'd think, oh, I would have thought it would be more than that because of the First World War. But when you compare it to 1911, there were 1,029 females to 1,000 single males. So that is the biggest disparity we've ever seen in a census. So the war did have a noticeable effect. It doesn't sound much when you're looking at the big picture, but it really, really was. The number of widows is very striking. So there were 1.6 million widows compared to just 640,000 widowers. That is probably one of the best pieces of evidence you will see for the terrible toll the First World War had. So just to recap that, 1.6 million widows in 1921 versus 642,000 widowers. So many, many, many more women had lost their husbands than men who'd lost wives. That was because of the war. That was definitely because of the war. We'll take a quick look at occupations. So there was some pretty noticeable changes from 1911 to 1921. I mean, one of the official reports says here, it will be seen that whereas in 1911 it was left to the discretion of the employee whether this question should be answered, in 1921 all employees were required to state not only the nature of their employer's business, but also the name of their employer. The change in the form of the question was of great assistance in obtaining more accurate and more detailed information in regard to industry. So we have a very good idea of what the top 10 industries were for men and women at that time. So the top 12 industries for men, which accounted for 50% of the entire male workforce. Number 1, coal mining, an industry that doesn't really exist in this country anymore. Number 2, agriculture. Number 3, building and contracting. 4, central civil government and defence. Hangover from the war, still big infrastructure around that in place. Number 5, railway transport. 6, engineering. 7, local governments. The civil service and local government was a huge employer, even back in 1921. Number 8, marine engineering and shipbuilding, another great big industry that sadly isn't quite as prominent as it was then. Number 9, cotton manufacture. Number 10, private personal service. Number 11, iron and steel manufacturing. Number 12, the manufacture of cycles and motors. New industry emerging, which was already becoming a big one. Obviously, car manufacturing was a very new industry at the time. For women, the top 12 industries accounted for 55% of the female workforce. Number 1, private personal service. I think that's essentially perhaps being similar to home duties, being a housewife, or maybe a servant of some degree. Number 2, cotton manufacturer. 3, local government. 4, dealing in textiles, drapery, and clothing. 5, tailoring. So it appears tailoring was a much bigger business for women than it was for men by 1921. Dress and blouse making, number 6. 7, lodging and boarding houses. That's quite interesting as well, isn't it? I wonder if a lot of these were run by widows. Number 8, wool and worsted manufacturing. Number 9, hotels, inns, public houses. Number 10, central civil government and defence. So that was also a big employer for women. Number 11, laundries, job dyeing and dry cleaning. Number 12, medicine and care of the sick and infirm. I mean, I could do probably about 4 hours on this. I think in the interest of time, we'll just leave it there. That was a snapshot of the stats we have. I'm conscious that we've only got a few minutes left, and this being my last ever one, I want to spend that looking at the comments. So we'll have a few more questions in the week, and then I will have to say my very, very fond farewell. Robin Wilson said, question of the week. Most of my grandparents had left England by the 1921 census. They were in Durban, that's in South Africa, isn't it, at that time, or in the Caribbean, following up now with their siblings. Let us know how you get on. Karen Jones has said, William Shaw, I've discovered that my maternal granddad was born in Macclesfield and no one in the family knew that at all. The 1921 census has helped break down that Great War. Lovely. We love hearing that. Oh, sorry, that's my son crying in the other room. He's a bit poorly at the moment. He's full of cold, bless him. Family Curious has said, I've had a lot of fun looking into my ancestors in the 1921 census here in South Wales so far. Great to see my great-grandfather's railway company listed as his employer. Wow, nice. More research to do there. That's what I like to hear. Beth Southgate said, I've been able to get back that far too. Not quite sure how far that is. I think that's in response to another comment. And I've been lucky enough to be able to use local record office. Great tip, always visit your local record office if they're open again. Also consult your local family history society. Can't champion them enough. David Edwardson said, how can we see this data report? I think some of it actually is available in the 1921 official reports that we published last week. I think they are available on the site. If not, I'm pretty certain this is a topic that Mary McKee will probably want to explore with you in more detail, because she's created this enormous presentation, which is like, how many slides it is, which is what I was reading things from there. It was, she might struggle to do it in an hour. 52 slides, all packed with 1921 stats. So I will let her know this is something that you guys would be keen to hear more about. Oh, nice. Janet's, my paternal aunt was registered as a French polisher in her father's business, scientific instrument casemaker. That is an interesting one. Do you know what you should do? What I'd do if I were you, Janet, if I knew the name of the business, I'd start doing a little look on auction websites. Wouldn't it be amazing if you were able to buy, because old medical and scientific instruments often appear in auction lots. I love auctions. It's a bit of an addiction that my wife has convinced me to slow down on. But yeah, you might be able to track down one of the instruments she polished, or at least the something that the company manufactured. Have a look, see if you can track one down. Beth has said, my great-grandfather came under the marine engineer category as he was manager at H&C Grayson's at the Canada Docks, as we call them now, in Liverpool. Nice. Great place to be. Brilliant. Well, I think I'm gonna have to leave it at that. Actually, it's been what a wonderful 8 years it's been. I know we haven't been doing these for 8 years, but yeah, I'm incredibly sad to go. I'm gonna miss you all terribly. I can't say thank you enough for making this job incredibly enjoyable, and coming here, seeing your comments, speaking to you all, seeing what you're doing, hearing about your discoveries genuinely makes it worthwhile. You know, it's why we get up in the morning. It's why we do it. It's been a genuine pleasure. I really do mean that. I've loved every minute of it. Yeah, I'm very proud at some of the things we've done at Farm Our Past over the years. I mean, I've worked on some great things: launch of the 1939 register, launch of our crime, prisons and punishment collection, prisoners of war, British India, expansion of the British newspaper archive. The list goes on. And the reason we do it all is because we see, by speaking to you, what it enables you to do, and the discoveries and the connections it enables you to make. So yeah, on that note, I'm going to wish all of you the best for the future. I can't thank you enough. I've genuinely loved this. I'm sure I'll speak to some of you again. As I said, do feel free to look me up on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'd be very glad to stay in touch. And I will see you again in future comments. It's not goodbye, it's just hurrah. Let's say that. Not goodbye, just hurrah. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I'm seeing all your comments come in, and I'm feeling very, very emotional. So before I actually start tearing up, I'm gonna go. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been a genuine pleasure. Stay well, stay researching, stay in touch with each other, and I will see you all on here in the comments in the not too distant future. Honestly, thanks, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.